Hi, welcome to Celebrating Culture. In this episode, we're going to showcase the Italian contributions to agriculture in the Mississippi River Delta. Sicilians started coming over in the 1880s to work the sugarcane and cotton plantations of Louisiana, but they soon used their own creativity to go back to their natural roots of growing grapes. One group of 100 Italian families was brought into a large cotton plantation in Lake Village, Arkansas, Sunnyside Plantation, and the history is well documented there. Over 40 of those families left to the Ozark Mountains, some to found Tontitown in northwestern Arkansas, and some into Missouri where they founded Rosati. Their products were manufactured into something that ended up on almost every kitchen table in America. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to Celebrating Culture. We're here today at the American Italian Cultural Museum in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm with Patrick Campesi, who is a fifth-generation Sicilian into America. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, pleasure to be here.
So Patrick, tell me, your family seems like they came about the time mine did. Tell me about your family coming over from Sicily.
Yeah, so my great-great-grandparents, Vincenzo and Gaetano, they came from Poggioreale, Sicily in 1891, 1893, within that range. It was two brothers and one of their wives came over as farmers. And it was a one-way ticket. It was, I think the Department of Immigration gave them a ticket and said, hey, you come to farm over here. If you don't like it, they couldn't go back. It kind of sucks. You got to stay here. So they ended up farming on Godshaw Plantation, which is south of Iberville, where I'm originally from. They farmed there for about 20 or so years. And then in the early 1900s, probably like 1920s or so, they ended up moving up to Bayou Gula. They did that so they could start to own land. They didn't want to be laborers the rest of their lives. They wanted to become tenant farmers.
Bayou Gula actually has a marker about Tonti.
Yes.
And he was the guy, the first Italian, 1682, comes into Louisiana. Tell me about your connection to this church.
Ever since the Campesis were in Bayou Gula, that was the church they went to. And that church was actually built by Italians. If you look on the inside of the church, the roof, it's got the Italian flag. It's really worn and really faded, but it's still there, red, white, and green. But I was one of the last people baptized in that church. So they started working there until 1927, the flood came in. And that ran them out of where they were originally there. And then in 1929, the stock market crashed and the Great Depression happened, and they ended up going further south into White Castle, where my family's been ever since, on Laurel Ridge Plantation. They originally were asked to buy the plantation, but we had no money. So they ended up working there from 1929 until about 1974, I believe.
They were sugarcane harvesters.
Yes, exactly.
So they're swinging the blades.
Yep, they were swinging the blades, exactly. So that was my great-great-grandparents started that. My great-grandfather, Joseph, he brought the whole family to Laurel Ridge, and that's whenever the Campesis started farming there, the 1929, 1930s. My grandfather was born in 1925. His name is Ross Campesi. In about the 1940s, he took what he learned from farming from Papa Joe and everybody else in the family, and he ended up going a little bit further south of White Castle to a place called Cannonburg. And he created some business deal where he would get that extra land for our family so that we could farm that and hopefully get out of where we were of just that little lot of land on Laurel Ridge. From there, my grandfather Ross just started getting as much acreage as he could to farm.
So we're talking Donaldsonville, Port Allen, Plaquemine.
All the way up to New Roads as well. Through the course of him being a farmer, he ended up meeting a lot of other people, and he met a man named Arthur Keller. There's a company named Arkell, which is named after him, construction company. And Arthur Keller worked with LSU to teach agricultural practices abroad, internationally, in South America, Central America, even in Africa. And he worked with my grandfather, would send him as a consultant to teach these third world countries the practices that they had in agriculture and farming, bringing sugarcane to these areas. My grandfather actually was the first person to bring sugarcane to the Rio Grande Valley. He ended up finding out through like the bill of sale that one of the companies that was shipping materials down to where he was farming was across the river from where he was in Carville. So White Castle is right across the Mississippi from Carville. And he ended up going to the plant manager over there and trying to work out a deal with them how to save them money, but also to get some extra work for them, and he started doing maintenance work on the plant grounds. That was about 1967 or so, and over the course of a few years, he went from maintenance work there to providing labor for some jobs they needed, and next thing you know, he's providing labor across the country in chemical plants, repairs, maintenance, anything like that.
I mean, that's really the Sicilian, Italian, American dream.
Yeah.
As you come over, the first generation was moving the blades, cutting the sugar cane, and by the third generation, you got a business going, and then it just starts to grow from there.
One of the core values that was instilled in my grandfather, which is instilled in his father, and so on throughout the entire family down to me, was always work for the family. You want to make sure the family is fed. When my grandfather was a farmer, all of my cousins, so his nephews, nieces, even his cousins, he was giving them a job in some capacity, either on the farm or in the maintenance work. He was providing. My grandfather worked 7 days a week. He said his hobby was working. He really never took a day off, never went in town, had a drink. He wanted to make sure the family was taken care of. My grandfather, they had a lot of livestock, cattle and horses. He ended up having his own cattle brand, Crescent K. With one of his horses, he loved horses. He actually got a signed letter from George W. Bush thanking him for his contribution to that association and that community. One of his favorite horses he named Miss in Cash, and he had always had a hat because he always seemed to be missing cash. Growing up from the Great Depression, my grandfather always wanted to make sure that he had enough for him, but especially for the family.
You recently attended the St. Joseph Altar and Jazz Fest.
I did.
And we had a gentleman there named Morris Vacarella, and he's also got the same history as well. And I'm with Morris Vacarella, whose grandfather cut sugarcane. Morris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Charles. This is my grandfather, Frank Vacarella, who was actually born on the Oak Lawn Manor plantation around Franklin, Louisiana. Grew up and later became a field worker at the Alice C plantation in Franklin, Louisiana. These are his knives that he cut sugarcane by hand during that time period. Out there, he also met my grandmother, who hauled the water from the wells out to the field workers during the day. 1922, after they got married, my grandmother Bina Mangano, my father, Morris Vacarella Sr., was born in a workhouse without utilities in the field at the Alice C plantation. Back then, you had the baby, and then maybe in a week or two, you went to the hospital, went to the doctor and had it checked out, and you had a birth certificate given to you.
Morris, I understand you have a saying when times are tough or you had a long day.
I remember shaking my hands with my grandfather. His hands was like calluses. It's hard work that he put out in the field. So when I'm sitting at my desk and I have this on the wall behind me, and I look at this and see what he went through, I'm saying, what are you whining about? Look at the life that he had to go through so you can be where you are today.
Morris, I want to thank you for bringing us out today. We're starting a fundraising project to raise money to create a monument here to the Sicilian Sugarcane Harvester. It'll be about 12 feet tall. It's going to be by Franco Alessandrini. What do you think of the design?
Oh, it's beautiful. It shows the working relationship they had in the field, that it wasn't just easy sitting on a tractor, driving down and let it do all the work. They had to physically get out there with their sweat, with their blood, and cut it and haul it. What they went through, we benefited from.
Morris, I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Charles. I really appreciate
and your family
it.
for their legacy. You are the vice president of a St. Expedite Lodge.
Yes, I am.
Tell me about that.
So I'm the vice president of St. Expedite Lodge with Max Nasser. He is the president of our lodge. And we are everything south of Alexandria in Louisiana. And I'm also in charge of the Young Italian Professionals Club, which is associated with that. And what we're really trying to do is just preserve the Sicilian and Italian culture and contributions to Louisiana, but also to connect Italians, younger generation, fifth generation like myself, or other generations, connect them like they had when they first came over here. Everybody was a community. That's kind of dissipated. We want to bring that back.
So if somebody wants to know more, is there a website or a Facebook page?
We have a Facebook page, St. Expedite LA.
And you recently had some activities.
Last week we were at Hayride Scandal, which is a really cool prohibition themed bar celebrating Italian Republic Day. And that was kind of the first kickoff of the St. Expedite Lodge as well as the Young Italian Professionals. And next week we actually have our first Young Italian Professionals dinner at Geno's in Baton Rouge.
Patrick, I want to thank you for being on the show. The younger generation is bringing in new means with social media and other ways to connect Italians to appreciate our heritage. So thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of Celebrating Culture. Hi, welcome to New Orleans Insider Tours. We've created 10 apps for you to really experience Louisiana from an insider point of view. The Little Palermo app is free. It has 50 points of interest in the French Quarter of New Orleans, showcasing monuments, restaurants, and other points of Sicilian influence into Louisiana culture. Hi, welcome back to Celebrating Culture. We're here today in Lake Village, Arkansas for the annual spaghetti feed at Our Lady of the Lake Catholic Church put on by the Italians of Sunnyside Plantation. And Anthony is going to tell us the story of a great migration that was brought here in 1895. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charles. So glad you're here. Well, I want you all to know about here in Lake Village, Arkansas, down in the southeast corner of Arkansas in the Mississippi Delta. A little over 125 years ago in 1895, a New York financier acquired the magnificent Sunnyside Plantation here in Lake Village, Arkansas. It was one of the largest plantations in the entire South. After the Civil War, the labor force was decimated with all the slave laborers moving up north. So the financier, Austin Corbin, came up with this great plan. Some called it a scheme to replenish his labor force with Italian laborers. So he knew a mayor of Rome called Prince Ruspoli, and together they put together a scheme to populate an Italian colony right here in Lake Village, Arkansas. So in 1895, the first wave of Italians came in. Over 500 Italians were settled here in little houses on the plantation called Sunnyside. Plantation was on the other side of the lake, and it was nestled in between this 18-mile lake, Lake Chico, which is the largest natural oxbow lake in the United States. And we had, after 2 years, in 1897, we had 1,000 settlers right here in Lake Village. Before that, there were only 40 Italians in the entire state of Arkansas. And so from 1895 to roughly 1923, when immigration was cut off in the United States, this settlement here flourished and thrived. And so what we're doing here today is the tradition which began in 1896 of serving pasta and spaghetti dinners and meatballs to the community. Everything that is made here, the pasta from scratch, the meatballs from scratch, our fabulous lemon cake desserts are amazing, our salads. And we have people come from all over the South for this day. And today, here in 2021, March 7th, we had a sellout again. It's all gone. It's just a great testament to the tradition here. And we have people from age 6 years old to 94 years old that volunteered in making of this pasta.
I have been coming to this spaghetti dinner in Lake Village since 1978, and the Italian population here is truly amazing. They are so generous and kind. They're hard workers. They work on this for a solid year. People meet up here, they have a good time together. The pots of the spaghetti are so big that instead of a spoon, they use boat paddles to stir the sauce.
My name's Geno Sabatini. I'm the fourth generation. My family came here in 1896.
Are you the head chef?
Me and another friend of mine named Keith Hunter, they made the meatballs 2 weeks ago. 4,048 meatballs. Yeah, a lot of stirring. You can't burn on the bottom. You're going to keep the meatballs from drying out on the top, so you got to always smash them down in there, stir them around a little bit, and keep them rolling. And we stayed busy cooking noodles from 6 o'clock this morning till 12:30. It's 1:48 right now.
Roughly 30 years ago, my mother, Elizabeth Olivi Borgognoni, founded the museum here, the Italians of Sunnyside and Church Museum, and we have one of the largest church museums in the state of Arkansas. We're very proud of it, and you can see the entire history of the Sunnyside Italians right here in our museum from 1895 to the present day. There are over 1 million descendants distributed across the United States that originated right here in this little hometown of Lake Village, Arkansas. Just like many immigrants that came to the United States, they had to battle through some friction and some unfavorable circumstances. And right here, the Italians were taking great advantage of. So the Sunnyside Plantation developed their own currency to control the Italian colony. And the Italians, when they were here and in their homes, they were provided small cottages, small homes, but everything that was provided for them was from the company store on a debt system. So if the Italian laborers were given advancements with company money, not American money, but company money, and then they accrued a debt. So with that debt, the plantation owners controlled them. Because of that system, which was called a peonage system, became a form of slavery. So because of that slavery, during the 1907, the Teddy Roosevelt administration sent down a special investigator from the U.S. Attorney General to investigate the peonage and the horrible atrocities that were inflicted upon the Italian settlement here. The great suffering that our ancestors had to endure, but they endured it, they thrived, and became great American citizens, and very proud of our heritage. Our heritage here, the tradition is now 126 years long. We have put together a new foundation called the Italians of Sunnyside Plantation, which people contribute to out of their generosity to keep this legacy going, and we hope it'll be around for the next 125 years.
Anthony, I want to thank you for being on the show, and what a great spaghetti dinner you guys put on, and it's just great how you've kept the history alive. If somebody wants to learn more, is there a website they should go to?
Yes, there is. That website is the Italiansofsunnyside.org.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of Celebrating Culture. Hi, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Celebrating Culture. On News has interviewed hundreds of people and produced dozens of episodes for local broadcasting. Awesome people doing great things to inspire us all. If you'd like to watch a specific interview, please visit our YouTube channel and subscribe. Hi, welcome back to Celebrating Culture. We're here in Tontitown, Arkansas, at an Italian winery, and I'm with Heather Ranalli-Peachee. What generation are you for this?
Fourth generation.
Fourth generation
Yep.
of this winery. Great Italian wines and a great story of how they got here.
Tontitown was founded in 1898 by Italians. Most of the Italians that founded Tontitown were all from northern Italy, moved from Italy to Lake Village, Arkansas for different reasons. We're trying to find a new home outside of Lake Village. So Father Bandini heard of the Italians that were having a lot of hard times and helped them find a new home, which was Tontitown. They chose Tontitown because of the high elevation, which is good for frost protection for grapes, rocky soil, so it reminded them a lot of the landscape of where they came from. My great-grandpa Nazareno Ranalli, he was one of the few that came straight from Italy to Tontitown by himself. My grandparents had 7 children. My dad's the youngest of the 7. He and 2 of his brothers still run our original family farm. They're the last commercial grape growers here in Tontitown, so we made a lot of wine in the basement. I call it basement wine. We foot stomped the grapes. We were literally making wine in the basement with my husband, and it was probably in about maybe early 2009, and my husband said, "What do you think about us opening a winery?" We found a property and fixed everything up and then opened our doors here in October 2010. Mid-May through the end of October, we do live music on our patio here. It has gone over really well. We have lots of fun. We love dancers, and depending on the night, we will have dancers out here. Last night was the first night that we've done music, both a full band outside and a smaller band inside. Yes, we have the bocce court over there. All the food really has been well received, and we've tried to very carefully build our menu. In the winter, we did lasagna soup, which was really fantastic. We have the Italian cheese bread. I'd always heard about the muffalata, but never had one. Knew it was started in New Orleans, but it's an Italian sandwich, and it's unique because it's huge and fun and tasty. We took our own trip to New Orleans, tried the different options for muffalatas. We went first to Central Grocery and bought a 5-gallon bucket of olive salad and toted it home with us, and that's what we're using. Tontitown has some really awesome Italian restaurants. We have Venetian Inn and we have Mama Z's, but we also have Guido's Pizza that is fantastic. It's really nice that we've been able, in different ways, with food and agriculture, to carry on the traditions of our families that started Tontitown. There are some other meaningful landmarks here in Tontitown. We have the immigrant statue in front of City Hall. It has on each side all of the names of the original Italian immigrants that founded Tontitown. Inside City Hall, they have all of the original family names on barrel staves. Also, just here on the corner is the bell tower for St. Joseph's Catholic Church. I would argue that the Tontitown Park, Harry Spinoto Park, is the best park in Northwest Arkansas. St. Joseph's Catholic Church built the Education Center. It is named after Father Bandini, who helped the original families found Tontitown.
Now, if somebody wants to know more, you have a website?
We do. TontitownWinery.com is our website.
I want to thank you for being on the show. And this is
Thank
a great
you for
place.
having me.
I really had a great time here last night. Actually, I was here last Friday and Saturday.
See? We'll see you next week.
Well, I think you will. I want to actually say salute. All right? Salute to the winery.
Salute.
To Tontitown. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back with more of Celebrating Culture. Hi, welcome back to Celebrating Culture. The immigrants to Lake Village, Arkansas, besides moving on to found Tontitown, moved and founded Rosati. It's the story of the American dream. In October of 1897, 3 Italians left and went to St. Louis, where they met with a representative of the railroad. They found 1,000 acres that were for sale. 2 months later, another 10 guys went to St. Louis and toured the land. They decided it was a go, and in January, they moved up there, living in boxcars until they built their homes to bring their families to there. They first grew the Italian grapes that they brought with them, which didn't make it. Then they switched to the Concord grape. The Concord grape was also wonderful for jams. They survived Prohibition and became very instrumental in the American effort during World War II. Peter Hofherr, the CEO of the St. James Winery, has made a great video in which he acknowledges and gives credit to these Italians and their contribution to America.
Hi, welcome to St. James Winery. My name is Peter Hofherr, and I am the second generation owner and current CEO and chairman of the St. James Winery. We're so happy that you chose to spend some time with us today, and we'd love to show you some of the legacy that my parents started in 1970 and we continue today. When you think of the sprawling vineyards and luxurious wines, mid-Missouri is probably not the first place that comes to mind. The truth is, it really should be. The climate and rich soil here make the Missouri-Merrimack Highlands ideal for harvesting world-renowned grapes and producing some of the finest wines you will ever enjoy. In fact, prior to Prohibition, Missouri was the second largest wine-producing state in the United States of America. Once Prohibition went into effect, Missouri had to get creative with their vineyards. It was the Italian immigrants during the late 1800s that first started growing grapes in the Merrimack Highlands. These immigrants were essential to Missouri's wine industry. They brought with them their expertise and began growing grapes such as Concord. Then, instead of destroying their vines during Prohibition, they formed a fruit growers association. This strategy enabled them to continue to grow their fruit and sell their grapes to grocery stores in St. Louis, Missouri, during and even after Prohibition. During World War II, Welch's Grape Juice received a government contract to supply the military with juice, jams, and jellies. When they sought out the best Concord grapes, they found our region and contracted to produce the fruit with the local Italian families. As a result, Merrimack Highlands thrived, and we had over 2,000 acres of Concords in our area. Generations of families tended to their vineyards in an effort to not only meet the military demand, but after the war, continue to supply Welch's by shipping their produce down to Springdale, Arkansas, where the production plant was. My father, James Hofherr, knew about the quality of the Concord grapes in the area. He knew that if he was able to make high-quality wine out of those grapes, that he would have a successful business. There were only 300 wineries in the United States, and my father knew that quality was going to be important for long-term success. So he knew this was the region to build his dreams in. It was my mother, Pat, who at the time when women were discouraged from business jobs really saw the potential for a new family business. She encouraged my father to increase production and opened a tasting room in St. James, Missouri, along the famous Route 66. Over the years, we have grown from a small town winery mainly catering to local tourists to one of the top 10 most decorated wineries in the United States. Our modest family vineyard has expanded to over 185 acres that produce over 600,000 gallons of wine annually. We ship those 250,000 cases of wine that we produce all around the United States. The key to being a highly awarded winery is to continually improve our grapes and make them the best they can be and reflect the region in which they're grown in every wine we make. To my family, this means continual investment in research and development, continuing to look for grapes that grow well in our region, and providing the technology to make sure they're harvested at the correct time and achieve the highest quality. Through our growth, we've maintained our local roots. We still make wine the way my father intended for the St. James Winery family. Whether it's our Heritage Series, our unique Frontier wines, our fruit wines, or even our exclusive Winemakers series, we make something for every palate because our goal is that everyone will find something at the table they can enjoy. At the end of the day, it's our love for the vineyards and our passion for the product that we produce that we hope to share with you. We know the only way to grow is to expand the table, invite more friends in, and make sure you never run out of great wine. Welcome to our table, and thanks for joining us.
I've had the pleasure of enjoying some of the great wines of St. James Winery. Today in Rosati, there's still the church and there's the 4M Vineyards. Please take a moment and stop there, especially if you're driving Route 66. Rosati and St. James are in the heart of about 8 cities of Route 66 in Missouri that make for a great weekend stop. There are 2 iconic motels, the Shamrock in Sullivan and the Munger Moss in Lebanon. In Cuba, there's the 2nd largest rocking chair in the world. In St. Robert, you have Flo's Diner. In Rolla, there's Mini Stonehenge. There's Devil's Elbow, which is a great way to experience the old and original Route 66. I had the pleasure of spending several days in this area of Missouri, and I definitely got my kicks on Route 66. Hi, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Celebrating Culture. Please make the time to take a stop on Route 66 to have some great wine at the St. James Winery, or if you're in the Ozark Mountains, go to Tontitown. Great music and great food at their vineyard. And if you're in Louisiana, our chefs are so proud of the great foods they make using Louisiana sugarcane.